Hey, you guys, you know what it is? It's Taco Tuesday, so we have something to talk about. There was a quote, let me pull this up, that was said by, of all people, the one that all the Christian men seem to hate, which kind of blows my mind that they would hate her because she is literally one of the big sellers in Christian womanhood. She goes around and teaches. She does all kinds of stuff. Let me find this. Replacements. I started rewriting and editing a chapter of my book yesterday. So I finally got into a place with my emotions that I could do this stuff. And this really struck me yesterday, what she said in my own words on this. Okay. Hair's driving me crazy. I need to wash it, but there hasn't been decent water pressure except late at night, and I don't wash my hair that late because it takes forever to dry. Okay. If you don't know who I am, I'm Suzanne Titkemeyer. I used to write a column called No Longer Quivering for Pathos about these taco churches, about this non-denominational evangelical hood that's just awful on so many levels. Very high demand, it breaks women. So this is what we're talking about. These are my opinions. Don't believe anybody I talk about. Okay, Beth Moore said on X instead of Twitter, you are far more disposable to them than you could imagine. And that kind of just threw me on the floor when I read that because it is a thing. It's a thing in evangelicalism that women are replaceable. They don't tell you that. They preach about how women are this, that. They're precious. They're to be protected. They're this, they're that. But they don't tell you that they will replace you if things go haywire. And I mean, even in the most ridiculous ways that you can think of, you'll get replaced. When I left my old Fundagelical church, I held a number of leadership roles. I wasn't gone a week before they plugged somebody into each one of those. I was shocked at how quickly some people were plugged in after I left because some of the things I did were not going to be that easy to pull off. But that's not even the worst part of the replacements. I have to talk about this a little bit too. I had somebody who was a close friend during those years who her and I were like thick as thieves. We were sisters. We would be out there smoking cigars and shooting tin cans off of vents with air rifles. We'd go riding go-karts. We'd done all kinds of crazy things together. We'd snuck off to do them because they weren't exactly approved of by our leadership. So we used to laughingly refer to ourselves as the wild woman of the way when we went off and rode go-karts because it wasn't canon for good quiverful mothers to do this stuff. We would sometimes every 6 months or so go do something a little wild just for the fun of it. She died of cancer, and my friend Cindy Kunzman can tell you I was wrecked when the diagnosis came. This woman, I'm going to call her Kathy because that's what I call her in my book, had come to me towards the end of my journey with Possum Creek Church and had said, I need you to renounce Toronto Airport Christian Fellowship and the Toronto Blessing if we're going to stay friends. And I looked at her and said, girl, I'm going to miss you. Because at that point, and it's funny when I look back, Toronto also played a part in me getting out of what I was in because it was so different and radically different. Now, it wasn't entirely right either, but no one has a full grasp on truth. But I think that Toronto had a few things right. So I explained to her at the time, friends don't ask friends to change their theology to make them comfortable. They just don't do it. It doesn't work. It doesn't happen. So Kathy went on with her life, completely divorced from mine, and then she moved off to up north somewhere. She moved over to Montana, was it? I don't remember. But the only reason I found out about what happened to Kathy was all of a sudden I had all these Facebook messages from women I knew from the church that I knew from Possum Creek. I don't know if it was uterine cancer or fallopian tube cancer, some kind of cancer in their lady parts. And because she was someone that did not believe in regular checkups, did not believe in going to the doctor for anything, it was all herbs and eating the right foods and all of that. And that's very common. And that's funny because the theology, speaking of which, I gotta pick my drugs off the floor. There's no theology that says these things, but they had seized upon this as an important part of their identity. I was broken when I heard about Kathy's diagnosis because she was only expected to live for 2 more weeks. She was said she probably had 2 weeks to a month tops. When it was found, she only went to the ER because her headache got too awful to ignore. They discovered that the cancer was in her brain, it was in her bones, her lungs, everywhere. So it wasn't like there was much they could do. And I was distressed because for the last 2 weeks, month of her life, I got to watch her go from place to place to place trying to be healed. And I can't tell you how frustrating that is. Our old church had started to flirt with the Bethel Redding idea of healing of all diseases. And as someone who did not know I had mast cell when I left, but subsequently found out that was the driver behind my asthma and everything else, it was kind of disheartening. Cried for a long time over Kathy's losing Kathy, even though we had not spoken in many years. But here's the thing, Kathy's husband, Mike, remarried with a swiftness that would make your head spin. Now, when fundagelical worlds collide, Mike and his new wife and some friends I know from here that are rather fundagelical have all joined up at the villages in Florida. So when I saw them talking on each other's Facebook, I was like, what? So, and he was hardly the only one that I saw that happened with. I saw a number of guys lose a wife, particularly if they had young children, and immediately marry. Sister did it. I was so shocked that he remarried in under a year because I knew and loved his wife, his wife Donna, and she died of cancer as well. But Donna at least would go get regular checkups and the like. And they caught this quote early, but she was basically killed by the treatments to get rid of it, the invasive treatments. And watch a pastor replace her quickly. But I think the most startling and rattling to me of all of them was a guy that I knew and his wife who they joined our church after we'd been there 5 or 6 years. Maybe it was more than that. And their first weekend there, the husband, Joe, stood up and talked about the wife having breast cancer and that they were seeking prayers for her to be healed. Well, obviously, yeah, if you have something like that going, you're going to ask them to pray for you to be healed. After the service, I went up to her and said, hey, I'm sorry you're going through this. I'll be praying for you. But you're in luck because there've been a lot of great, new treatments and drug regimens that have been developed in the meantime, and you're lucky to be able to take part in that. So I've had chemotherapy myself a few times, more than a few times. If you have any questions about how to deal with the side effects, you could always call me. That's what I said, thinking I was trying to be supportive of this poor woman. Later that same service, I was out in the parking lot preparing to get in my car, and I was alone. I don't remember why I was alone. I guess the kids must have gone off with church friends, and my husband must have driven separately. You have to understand when you're on worship team or anything like that, you gotta show up at the butt crack of dawn. Rehearsals, various things that you have to do. So I get out to my almost to my car, and Joe flags me down and says, "Hey, I wanna let you know I don't want you to ever talk to my wife about treatment like that ever again. We are seeking God for this, and the Lord alone is gonna heal her. We're not gonna submit ourselves to the idolatry of doctors and man." I was kind of flabbergasted. I was jaw dropped. I just said, "Okay," because what else can you say? You can't say, "Hey, you're foolish, you're full of this, you're full of that." You have to just kind of let people do their own thing, even if you think their own thing is toxic and weird and wrong. So I let them do their own thing. I went off, I did my thing, and I would hear every now and then about Joe's wife. They had a prayer group there, they did this, they did that. But it was pretty obvious that her health was not improving. It was a downward slide. And every now and then I would hear people say, "Oh, it was wonderful. I was there praying and silver drops fell from the sky and X, Y, and Z happened. God is with him. God is all over this." Well, God may be all over this, but why would you not try medicine? Hey, why would you not try medicine? Why would you just completely throw away all medicine, not just chemotherapy, but all medicine? Don't have the surgery, don't have anything. Just like it's like treating a heart attack with a Band-Aid. It just doesn't always work well. And in due time, she passed. Joe's wife passed. I don't even remember what her name was. That's how long ago this was. And I didn't even go to the service. I didn't go to the funeral. I kept the same level of remove that I had kept from Joe and his wife ever since he chased me down in the parking lot and told me that I was wrong about everything. Okay, here's the shocking bit. 6 months later, Joe had a brand new Corvette. Joe had upgraded wives from his middle-aged, kind of typical evangelical, long-haired, submitting in the potato sack dress wife to the hot new young model. Yes. Joe was somewhere between 40 and 50. He turned around and married someone, 21, some obscenely young amount. And I remember griping to a friend of mine. I said, "Joe's wife gets to mold her way in a grave. Joe gets a Corvette and a new young trophy wife. Make this make sense." And it wasn't just if someone died. If there was divorce too, there was usually immediate replacement if it was a wife that had been divorced. Now, if it was a wife divorcing the husband and she had, quote, biblical reasons, I rarely saw anybody replace their husband, but I saw a whole lot of people replacing their wives very quickly. It was almost always with younger women, no matter how old they were. There was always this big age gap. And I'm not saying big age gaps are wrong or they can't work. My husband's 9 years older than I, but it wasn't grooming or anything else. It was the fact that I'm looking at guys in my own age group. When I met him, I was 23 and going, "I don't think so." So I always dated older guys. I dated guys that I could talk about books and art with. Those kind of guys. But at the same time, you don't see that in these kinds of religious CULT groups. What you see is you see women that are married off at too young of an age with no life experience to these guys that have nothing in common with these women. And they end up Not always the happiest, let's just put it that way. I've seen so many bad marriages as well in my old group. I sat down and figured out one time that even infidelity was at 15% in my group. I don't know how that aligns, but I suspect it aligns right across the board. I know I won't. White children who look like me, but I don't get why white people are so angry when they see other white people dating out. I don't get it either. But then again, I was raised in the deep South. I got to listen to my father flap his gums about KKK nonsense and his racist views for many years until later, even he had to adopt some different stances than he did. And I've often sat and wondered what he would think of Barack Obama and some of the others that have come since he's passed, because he passed in 1999, at a younger age than I am now by quite a bit. Well, not by quite a bit. Let me stop lying. 2 years. I have been 2 years past he and his mother lived. So I'm thrilled with that. So many of these groups, that is one of the red flags. If you can see that the women who disappear through divorce, through just plain old leaving the church, through all of that, if you can see that these women are being replaced or women are dying, men immediately get a new, much younger partner. That's a huge red flag, my friends. If you see that your group is doing this, know that this is not something that needs to be part of any of this. And sadly, I know that Beth Moore is right. It will surprise you, will shock you how quickly you will be replaced if you leave one of these groups. That's the rub. That's the downside. My grandma always wanted me to marry a white or Asian person, but it wasn't out of hatred. I think it was there can be added problems. Yeah, it comes with interracial dating. Yes. One of my daughters was about to date somebody from a different race, and I actually told her, I said, "There's nothing wrong with dating this guy. The wrong comes in, yeah, just know you're gonna be harassed left, right, and center by everybody." And sure enough, I had some people approach me, and this is before I joined my old church. I said, about my daughter, and I just said, "Yeah, I wonder there'd be a whole lot of judgmental people throwing shame and judgment her way if she dated this guy." That was my only response to that, and it shut some people down. Which brings me to a very important point about my old fundamentalist church, Fundagelical church, is they talked a good game of not being racist, but we had no black members. None, 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 none. Not only that, there was a nearby black church that had the exact same name as our church, and once a year we would get together with them, and we'd have a picnic. And then we'd all go back to our separate sides and our separate buildings, and we would all pat ourselves in the back because we're not racist. Beloved, if you are not having regular interactions with people from other races in your life, if you are going out of your way to only seek out spaces of your own color, guess what? You're racist. It's low key, low bias racism, but it is there. It is there. Right now, I'm reading through a book called Theologicizing Bigger by Trey Ferguson. And I got to tell you, I'm stumbling over the challenging parts that have to do with racism. He is making me think about racism in a way I had not really wanted to think about. And it's kind of funny because somebody in my family, a close family member, got a DNA test, and it turns out we have African American in our family line. And well, I'm not surprised because we're from South Louisiana, which used to be a big slave port. Well, I'm not at all surprised. Once I started doing some looking and reading in a deeper way of the African American experience in America, it's just heartbreaking. Well, a lot of it is heartbreaking, and I knew a lot of it before I even started this newest round of reading. It's not a good thing. I think that the best we can do, hey, Grace Peter, is try not to engage in that. And that's one of the things that I always found very challenging about leaving these places like my old Possum Creek church is the stuff is in here. And when it pops up and you're like, "Oh no, I thought that thought." And that's a wrong thought. That's a thought straight from those guys. Sometimes the best thing you can do is say no. It's that thought. Say, no, this is not the truth. The truth is XYZ. Tell yourself the truth internally in your head. Breathe in, breathe out, move on. So that's today's rant. I just can't get over. Like Beth Moore, I can't get over how quickly we were replaced. What type of theology does not leave space for women to all be different and to have different needs, abilities, everything else? Jesus recognized that. But these guys, anything short of Robot Wife 3000 is wrong. I had to do this when I got out. Yes, Grace Peter, that's one of the most challenging and or helpful things you can do. I mean, even to this day, I sometimes will look at something and think, oh, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. Okay, you guys, I gotta go. I gotta turn out 10 million deviled eggs. We're going to a function at my husband's church tonight. And I'm not really looking forward to it. I'm gonna do it. And it's my act of service when I don't feel like doing it. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch up with you guys later on down the road. I am uploading a second video today because there's been a lot of drama in our community. There's been a lies being said by somebody, suggestion about how we handle this person and what our response should be. And I'm going to upload that. I don't really want to mix my content. I don't want the things about her to be mixed up with the religious stuff. Love you guys, and I'll see you later.